Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Andrew Hunter. Brian Hunter is my father. Got that over. Just some admin things before we start. There are bathrooms down the back. Bathroom, so might be a queue. If there is a fire, which hopefully there won't be, I think that's the only flame we have, the exit is out the door that you all came in. For those in the Hunter room, the exit is out the door into the main car park and congregate over on the grassy area. A simple warning, please turn off your phones or turn down your phones, so keep them quiet. Well, thank you for all being here today to honour and remember Dad. Your presence means a great deal to our family. This memorial is being streamed live, and we welcome Dad's sister Anne and Ross and her family in Christchurch, and family members in Australia, Canada and the UK. We know this is a difficult time and we appreciate you being here to support one another. We would like today's memorial to be a celebration of Dad's life, to share stories and to find comfort in each other's company. To that end, we encourage you to share your stories of Dad. Your stories are an important part of keeping his memory alive. Thank you again for joining us today and being here as we grieve. Now, I'd like to share some thoughts and memories of Dad with you and reflect on the person that he was and the significant life that he lived. Dad was born in 1940. His mum and dad were Edna and Jim Hunter. He had a brother, Alex, and a sister, Anne. His early years were spent in Paikakura, then in Rewa during the war, and then when the family moved to Feilding, he did his schooling at Manchester Street, Lytton Street, and Feilding Ag. I'll stick with Feilding Ag, that's what I remember. During this time, he was a member of the swim club. He played badminton competitively for the St Paul's Club, and he worked on through numerous judo grades, ultimately gaining his brown belt. While he always dreamed of being a farmer, his father encouraged him to pursue a trade. So he trained as a fitter and turner at Lincoln and Morgan's in Palmerston North. It was during this time that he met my mother, Rosalie, a farm girl from Wanganui, training as a teacher at Palmerston North Teachers College. They were married on May 11th, 1963. Over the next 5 years, our family expanded to 5. First there was Lynette. She now lives, where's Lynette? In Hamilton. She's a florist and artist and works in an art department at St Peter's College. There's me. What am I? I'm a surveyor. I'm a geomatics engineer. I'm a traveller by bike. And lastly, there's Kath. She's a clinical nurse and teaches nursing to international students in Adelaide. My father took immense pride in each of us. He always believed that our achievements were a reflection of the values that he instilled in us. And nothing brought him greater joy than witnessing our growth and success. He had a unique way of showing his pride, whether it was a simple smile that lit up his face when we shared our accomplishments, or the way he would speak to us or about us with others with such enthusiasm and admiration. He cherished the small milestones just as much as the big ones. I remember he would always attend school events, constant positive support, providing constant positive support in his quiet way. He valued our individuality and encouraged us to pursue our passions, reminding each of us that our journeys are unique. His belief in us was unwavering. And even during challenging times, he would always remind us that we were capable of achieving our dreams. More than anything, my father wanted us to be happy and fulfilled. And that desire was deeply rooted in his love for us. He often expressed how proud he was of the people we were becoming We felt his pride in every hug and every encouraging word, every moment spent together, and knowing that we made him proud is a memory that I will always carry with me. In 1962, he began his farming career, first as a shepherd in the hills of Mangamahu with his horse and dogs, and then in Stanway at the Totras in 1963 as a shepherd, and later a farm manager working for the Sinclair family. Many of you will have been slightly deafened by one of Dad's early farming skills, taught by his grandfather, Ernie Thomas. Dad was told it was no good relying on the use of his fingers, especially when dagging. Yes, I can't whistle like him, sadly. By the late 1970s, Mum and Dad, along with three growing children, had leased and then acquired their own land, with the final farm being in Utawai. Dad worked hard to achieve this goal, both financially and physically. After farming, he transitioned in 1999 to work with Totally Vets, which allowed him to maintain a close connection with the farming community he cherished. After farming, Dad always enjoyed travelling and has ventured to many parts of the world to see his children and grandchildren. He was very proud of his family history, researching the Hunter, Thomas and Benjamin families. Mum and Dad would on occasion extend their family visits to include Scotland to research family history in Dunfermline, Edinburgh, Largs and Hunterston, the home of the Hunter clan. Community involvement was also important to Dad. He felt a strong sense of responsibility to contribute, particularly in areas of pony club, education, farming and local history. He served as a member of the Southern Ward of the Wanganui Education Board, covering schools from Foxton to Rangawahia for several years, and took on leadership roles as a member of the Halcombe School Board and the Feilding Agricultural High School Board of Governors. Horses played a significant role in Dad's life, both in his farming endeavours and recreational activities. He was actively involved in the local pony club, hunt club, and numerous AMP shows. In the late 1990s, this led him to becoming involved in the Manawatu Historic Vehicle Trust. Alongside many dedicated individuals, he continued to establish the Coach House Museum, preserving both stories and farm machinery, primarily horse-drawn, that shaped the farming community around Feilding and the Greater Manawatu. Dad was recognised in 2012 by the Manawatu District Council for services to the community, and again in 2013 with the Paul Harris Fellow Award from the Rotary Foundation for services to community and farming. Dad leaves behind a legacy of hard work, community service, and a deep love for the land and its history. One of my father's signature phrases was feet on the floor. Sometimes there are other words, but generally it meant feet on the floor. It was his calling card for anyone getting out to get out of bed, whether it was farm workers or his children. The day would usually begin around 5:30 a.m, and there was no escaping his cheerful demand. While many of us might have grumbled about the early wake-up call, he always infused that moment with a sense of purpose and determination that set the tone of the day. Dad was also a stickler for punctuality and organisation. He embedded these into everything he did. If there was a farmer's field day organised by Totally Vets or an event at the museum, he would invest immense amounts of effort and time into making that a success. It wasn't just about getting a job done, it was about doing it right. He believed that excellence was not optional, and this philosophy has inspired me to strive to the same level of commitment and quality. I also got this from my father. A reflection of my father's character can also be seen in his desire for tidiness, whether he was scrubbing down the board in the woodshed or preparing for a pony club event. He took great pride in maintaining a clean and organised space. It was more than just a preference. It was a way for him to show respect for his work and the people he worked with, ensuring everything was in order. And then there were moments when urgency was the theme of the day. Sometimes he would expand his pack of dogs to include human versions, especially when the stock weren't behaving as they should. Docking comes to mind particularly. In those times, he would yell out encouragement to the dogs and us alike. To Dad, we were all part of the same team, working together to get everything back on track. At the time, those moments weren't always filled with laughter, but they did create a certain camaraderie that left a lasting impression on all of us, that when looked back upon were more often than not amusing. My father was a man who appreciated the beauty of life and the simple joys it brings. He found joy in observing livestock and watching crops grow, which were vital aspects of his identity as a farmer. Each season taught him valuable lessons in patience and resilience, reminding him that life demands not only hard work but also faith in the natural world. He showed us that raising animals was more than just a task, it was a commitment to the future, reflecting his dedication to his family and community. When he worked, it was never just about the physical act, it was about connection. He connected with the land, honoured the legacy of those who came before him, and instilled the same values in us. He believed in the dignity of hard work, demonstrating this through actions, the importance of putting forth our best efforts in everything we do, whether in farming or serving the community. He embodied determination and integrity. Beyond his dedication to the land, my father was a thoughtful person who valued discussion and open dialogue. Engaging with different ideas and perspectives brought him joy. He encouraged us to think critically and actively engage with the world. He found peace in quiet moments of reflection, which served as a guiding force in shaping his principles and values. Ultimately, my father's life was woven together with hard work, love, and devotion to his family. He taught us that happiness often lies in the simple moments, in the tranquility of the farm at dawn, in the satisfaction of creating something meaningful, and in the warmth of shared experience with loved ones. Dad has been a constant support in my life, and his care and generosity has shaped who I am today. His lessons are expressed in a poem by John Ruskin that was given to him by his grandfather and has always hung above his desk and has been in my home since Kerry and I were married. To watch corn grow and blossom set, to draw hard breath over ploughshare or spade, to read, to think, to love, to pray. These are the things that make us happy. We've gathered here today to honour my father's memory. My father filled our life with countless moments, whether it was through his unwavering support, his quiet wisdom, or his smile. I encourage each of you to carry forward his spirit by celebrating the wonderful life he lived. Share your stories, laugh at the memories, and reflect on the values he instilled in us all. He affected the lives of many, and it's through our memories and actions that his legacy will continue to thrive. Let us remember him not just with sorrow, but with gratitude for the love he shared and the lessons he taught us. May we honour him by embodying the qualities he valued: kindness, hard work, and a deep appreciation for the beauty of life. Thank you for being here today and remembering my father. As we reflect on Dad's journey, we have some heartfelt messages from his siblings. Siblings often have a special perspective, filled with shared experience and cherished memories. And these messages offer us a glimpse into the beautiful moments they experienced together. The following is from Dad's elder brother, Alec. What can you say about your baby brother? By the time he was 10 or 11, I had to give up bossing him around as he was too big for me to fight anymore. My happiest memories of life at Rewa were of life at Rewa, playing in the creek and exploring our little world. Mum came looking for us away up the creek one day and seemed upset that we had wandered away so far. Then one time I think Brian was blamed for a fire on the hill above Rewa. And we had relatives up at Stormy Point, so walked up there through the paddocks on occasion. Then when we moved to Feilding to live, I remember Dad having to find us because we hadn't returned home on time. That required a trip to the bathroom for remedial purposes. Brian's first day at school didn't last long, as he put up his hand and asked to leave the room and promptly walked home. Our house was only a paddock away, so it wasn't far to go. At one time, I remember our granddad would take Brian to the Feilding sale yards on a Friday, so we probably dodged a few classes at times, but then that started him on his life stream to being a farmer. Considering Brian was on the Wanganui Education Board later on in life, he must have learned something in the interim. Just on that particular story, Dad thought that my nana would let him stay at home and just spend the rest of the day there, but she was quite upset by this and dragged him back to school, so he wasn't very happy about it. I left home when I was 16 to train as a woodsman in the Forest Service when Brian was 13, so our teenage years were spent in different environments. Brian completed an apprenticeship as a fitter and turner, then left Feilding to work as a shepherd at Mangamahu. Brian's life as a farmer went from strength to strength until he retired to Feilding and worked as a liaison between Totally Vets and the farmers in the area. I think that Brian's involvement with the Coach House Museum has been a wonderful investment of his time. The museum, along with all the research that Brian put into family history, will be a great gift to posterity. Personally, I can only wonder where the drive and dedication to detail that Brian displayed came from. He did everything well and achieved much in his lifetime, so I can only say, well done, Brian, rest in peace. The following is from Dad's sister, Anne. We send you our loving sympathy to you all. In loving memory of my older brother, Brian George Hunter. Brian was the youngest of my two elder brothers and was a loved family man and friend to many. He was a constant help to my mother, Edna, before and after our dad died at an early age of 51 years. He and Rosalie's Friday afternoon visits were always looked forward to. Brian is very missed and will continue to be missed by the family and those who knew him. With love from his little sister, Anne. I'd like to take a moment to introduce someone very special who will share a few words with us. Mike Parsons has been a wonderful friend of our family for many years and had a unique bond with Dad. Their shared farming experiences and his friendship brought so much joy to Dad's life. Please join me in welcoming Mike to share his thoughts and memories with us today.
Oh, this is on paper, not on here. I can't. Thank you, Andrew. My first ever memories of Brian and Rosalie was when I was a lad of 12 or 13, growing up on the farm along the gravel road opposite the Totris Gate. On the odd occasion, they would bring their children along for our family to babysit. It was my job to ferret around in the toy box to bring out the appropriate toy. Now, there was all sorts of things in that toy box, from soft toys to slug guns, so naturally I had to get the right one. At about the same time, tragedy hit our family with the loss of my father. Brian, being the big-hearted guy he was, took me under his wing and helped me out. I had a horse I was learning to ride at the time, which I have to admit I wasn't very confident riding. The Halcombe Stanway Pony Club was going at the time, and Brian offered to meet me at the end of the road to ride to Pony Club together, around the road to the Stanway Hall. Well, the thing about it is this memory I have of Brian on his horse. They certainly cut an imposing figure. You heard about Brian's horse, he loved it. It was a big framed, lovely horse, well turned out, and with Brian's big frame sitting in the saddle, they looked very impressive. I didn't realise then just how much of an impact he would have on my life. Over my 10 years, he became somewhat of a fatherly figure and mentor, and I dare say if it wasn't for Brian's influence, I may have followed a different path in my life. Our friendship was strengthened when I came home to manage and run the family farm. Brian was there in an instance to help out, never interfering, just giving good advice. We traded labour hours during the heavy workloads, such as docking, which was always fun, eh, Andrew? It was. and weaning, and seemed to work well together. We did a lot together over the years, playing badminton at the Stanway Hall, and our families nearly spent 8 or 10 consecutive years celebrating Christmas Eve, which was good fun too. We certainly celebrated and acknowledged each other's birthdays. While I was living on my own, I was regularly invited to the Hunters for meals and even invited to spend some days away with them on their annual holidays to the lake. Now, when Brian learned that I was to be married to my future wife or become engaged, it gave him a licence to throw a number of parties. Embarrassingly, and unbeknown to me, organised a welcoming evening for my future wife and her family in the hall, held a stag party in the loft of the Totris woolshed, and after a month or two of our marriage, very cunningly organised an old-fashioned tin kettling at our home, where I might add, a few of the Stanway teenagers felt pretty crook and had headaches the next morning. Now, I'm not looking at anyone in particular, but I think one might be over here somewhere. The dimensions of our friendships changed somewhat with the Hunter family purchasing the Arohanui farm as a stepping stone for better things. This farm, having had absentee owners, as you can imagine, the fences were a bit shoddy. It had a steep gorge on the property that always harboured a few stray sheep of all ages and degrees of dagginess and woolliness. Sorry about this, folks. Working on the farm one day, we saw this motley bunch on the fence line. Brian indicated to me to go around without being seen, go around the ridge without being seen, open the gate and stand down the fence. He would jump the fence behind them and bring them along. The next time I looked up, all I could see was a felt hat and a couple of dogs leaping into the gorge. I waited, heard a dog bark, and thought, oh, he's on to him, we're right. Then I waited again, and still I waited. And I thought about going to see what was happening, but no, I thought better not to leave my post. We've all heard about good soldiers who left his post, like things happen badly. Yes, I waited some more. And just when I was about to take my leave to see what was happening, this thing emerged from the gorge that resembled a yeti. But no, the only way I knew it was Brian. He had a big red face, still had his felt hat on, but over his shoulders was carrying this ugly old sheep, right there, and it was huge. He threw that sheep over the fence, and then he was that angry, he started the profanities. Well, I was mortified. I'd never seen Brian so angry and thought my life was on the line. All I could decipher was, where the hell have you been? Brian, I said, I've never seen you like this. I've never seen you so angry. You've changed, what's the matter? And he answered, the only thing that's changed with me, Michael, is I've got a friggin' mortgage, and walked off without saying another word. I asked Brian somewhat later how he was ever going to wipe his mortgage off by bringing some old scungy ewe out of the gully. He didn't say anything, and I knew then that I shouldn't be really poking this bear too often. It was a sad day for Stanway District to have the Hunter family move to Arohanui. They were such huge supporters of Stanway, including Halcombe and Waituna West. Arohanui seemed so far away at the time, and I thought it would be a while before I saw them again. But it wasn't long before I got the call from Brian inviting me to have a look around and help with some of the extra workload. I always enjoyed going up to Arohanui. Brian was a good farmer, and he kept the farm neat and tidy, always had good-looking stock. Rosalie kept the house and gardens immaculate, and a nice sunny day, the view of the ranges was quite good too. I think the lure of the hill country had Brian and I both intrigued. After leaving this farm, I didn't get to see much of Brian, as when he went to the vet club, he was so busy. We still tried to catch up at birthdays and events, and it was always good to share with him a glass or two of that good whiskey that he kept hidden in his cupboard. Now, Brian has been such a good friend to me. He has looked out for me for most of my life. The respect I have for Brian and the love I've had for him as a friend, I would take with me for the rest of my life. His presence in our lives, and yours too, Rosalie, has been a blessing. For 60 years and nearly 3 generations, our family has had the benefit of your kindness, knowledge and support. You have stood behind us through a number of family crises, and Liz and I have been lovely friends. Many times we have been referred to by you both as part of your family, and it has certainly made us feel special and privileged. It was heartbreaking to see Brian become ill and to see the constant battle he had with his health. I saw Brian the week before he went into hospital. We talked about old times again, and as I was leaving, he grabbed my hand and he said to me, "Mike, you've been like a brother to me." Well, I was left somewhat speechless. What do you say to a friend who's 12 years your senior and has earned the respect and mana of many? It made me feel very, very humble. I'm sad and sorry that I've lost a good friend. Brian's been a gentleman and a damn good bloke all his life. But to me, he's been a gold medal mate. Having a good mate like Brian has created some great memories that I will cherish and hold dear to us for the rest of our lives. Thank you, Rosalie, for sharing with our family this good man of yours.
I would like to call upon Carol Humphrey, who will read words prepared by Morris Hill. Morris is a lifelong friend of my father's from high school, where they first met working on the school farm. Carol.
Good afternoon all. Firstly, thank you to Rosalie for suggesting I put a few words together in memory of Brian, and my apology for not being able to attend in person, which I had intended to do. Secondly, to you, Andrew, Kath, Lynette, and all the family members, Jill, Rob and I convey our deepest sympathies and condolences to all in these sad circumstances. Thirdly, thank you, Carol, for standing in for me. Everyone present will have their own memories of Brian, who he was and what he stood for. Some of these memories will go back decades, as mine do. Although I knew Brian from school days, and several years before Brian met Rosalie around 1960 from memory, from those early days of courtship, it has always been Rosalie and Brian, or Brian and Rosalie, in every mail, phone and home visit since. I have forever held them both in highest regard on all of these key measures: personal, respectful, supportive and a loving relationship, an amazing family, their contribution to community and their mutual achievements, not least the iconic Coach House journey. No doubt others today will reflect on this. Back to school days. Brian was a year ahead of me, and while I don't recall him at Lytton Street Intermediate, we really came together at Feilding Agricultural High School, now Feilding High School, where I pursued ag stream. Brian excelled in the trades. Over 3 years, we became firm friends, working on the 2 school farms during most school holidays. Despite Brian heading into an apprenticeship in Palmerston North post-school, where he also excelled, I'm certain it was this introduction to farming and the fact that Rosalie had a rural upbringing which led Brian into initially farm management and then their purchase of Glencarn, a seriously challenging property. Most present know the rest of the story. This is not the time to reflect in detail on our many escapades and experiences during those school farm days. Needless to say, we had a great time, mainly did what we were told and learned a lot. If Bill and Ken McKinnon are present today, they will vouch for this. I finished high school in December 1958, by which time Brian had his first year apprenticeship behind him. Plus, importantly, he was a proud owner of a 1938 10 horsepower Ford Prefect with distinctive wire spoke wheels. He named her the Pregnant Lady because, as well as having rounded body shape, she also had a spare wheel on the outside of the boot lid. It was his pride and joy, and replaced his mum's Morris 1000, in which he broke the Feilding Palmerston North and return speeds records several times. Brian was 18 and I was just 17 in the Christmas of '58, when we set out on our first break from annual family holidays for a camping trip on the Coromandel Peninsula, which, like our school farm days, we had many firsts on this trip in terms of independence, camping, exciting New Zealand geography, and car repairs. Too many to recount here. Brian did an incredible job, including replacing the diff in the camping ground after we waited several days for parts. A memorable moment on the way north was heading down a steep slope on the desert road with one-way bridge at the bottom. Brian was driving and we rounded the bottom corner. Approaching the bridge, he made a last-minute decision not to try and beat the car coming over the bridge the other way. He slammed the already stretched cable brakes and we came to a halt about 10 feet from the bridge. That was okay, but the fact that our fully packed roof rack had left the roof on its own accord, bounced off the bonnet and disappeared down the bank towards the stream. It was a bit disconcerting. The other car had long gone, and about an hour later we got underway again, a bit shaken, a big dent on the bonnet, with most of our camping gear recovered. Brian has regularly reflected back on this trip, a major step for both of us towards adulthood and independence. Post Palmerston North Training College, where Rosalie was also a year ahead of me and where she and Brian met, I subsequently moved to Auckland in early 1961 and then travelled overseas in late 1963, ending up in Australia, where I now reside in Noosa with family. 1960 was a massive year for Rosalie and Brian and was the start of their amazing journey together. I witnessed this firsthand, mainly as chauffeur, while they got to know each other in the back seat. Rosalie? I was subsequently honoured to be best man at their wedding and at their 50th wedding anniversary here at the Coach House, where they again exchanged vows, both memorable events and symbolic of their relationship. I also visited Feilding, their farms, Estrada Court, almost every visit to New Zealand over a 60-year period, with the last visit in late February 2023. I have always counted Brian as one of my closest and oldest friends, and have been in awe of what he and Rosalie have achieved together. As always, and no matter the circumstances, there is always a feeling of deep sadness when a close friend passes. Farewell, Brian. So many good memories of those faraway days and our mutual friendship over all the years. I will miss our chats, debating our differences and sharing so much in common, albeit a distance in these later years. Friends forever, Morris.
My sister Lynette has chosen to share a poem to reflect very much how I believe what Dad would say to us if he was able. Lynette.
I just had a little moment of panic there. I thought I'd lost it. So thankfully Sarah found it. There's just a few things that I thought we remember Dad forever, and this poem will sort of reflect that. But first of all, I thought I'd think about some of the things that Dad left us thinking about as children. That anyway, here we go. Growing up, Dad never left us wondering. There was always a purpose to our day, and a skill to be learned, and love to be shared. There were Sunday shoe cleaning, wood chopping and stacking immaculately, My kids will know what that means now because I make them do it too. Calves to be fed, broken things to be fixed, thistle grubbing, horses to be groomed, stock to shift, haymaking before the rain. But hard work was always rewarded, and with a Sunday drive, a river swim, picnics, cooking sausages on the open fire with sticks, holidays, slow dancing on Dad's shoes, and always an ice cream. Those are just some of the many things that we will always remember about Dad. This is a poem which we heard just recently. Death is nothing at all. Death is nothing at all. It does not count. I have only slipped away into the next room. Nothing has happened. Everything remains exactly as it was. I am I, and you are you. And the old life that we have so fondly, the old life that we've lived so fondly together is untouched and unchanged. Whatever we were to each other, that we are still. Call me by the old familiar name. Speak of me in the easy way in which you always used. Put no difference into your tone. Wear no forced air of solemnity or sorrow. Laugh as we always laughed at the little jokes that we always enjoyed together. Play, smile, think of me, pray for me. Let my name be ever the household word that it always was. Let it be spoken without an effort, without the ghost of a shadow upon it. Life means all that it ever meant. It is the same as it ever was. There is absolute and unspoken continuity. What is this death but a negligible accident? Why should I be out of mind because I am out of sight? I am but waiting for you, for an interval somewhere near, just around the corner. All is well. Nothing is hurt, nothing is lost. One brief moment, and all will be as it was before. And how we shall laugh at the trouble of parting when we meet again. It's a poem by Henry Scott Holland. That to me speaks loudly of what Dad meant and wanted for his family to share, and he lives on through us. Thank you.
We'd now like to share a visual presentation that celebrates Dad's life, moments that brought joy, that brought laughter, and cherished memories. This collection includes photographs and stories that reflect his journey, his passions, and the many roles he played in our lives.
Smile, though your heart is aching. Smile, even though it's breaking. When there are clouds in the sky, you'll get by. If you smile through your fear and sorrow, smile and maybe tomorrow you'll see the sun come shining through for you. Light up your face with gladness, hide every trace of sadness. Although a tear may be ever so near, That's the time you must keep on trying. Smile, what's the use of crying? You'll find that life is still worthwhile if you just smile. That's the time you must keep on trying. Smile, what's the use of crying? You'll find that life is still worthwhile if you just smile.
Sweet, sweet memories you gave me. You can't beat the memories you gave me.
Take one fresh and tender kiss.
The memories you gave me.
Add one stolen night of bliss.
Can't beat the memories you gave me.
One girl, one boy, some grief, some joy.
Sweet, sweet
Memories are made of this.
the memories you gave me.
Don't forget a small moonbeam.
Can't beat the memories you gave me.
Fold in lightly with a dream.
The memories you gave me.
Your lips and mine, two sips of wine. Memories are made of this.
Can't beat the memories you gave me.
Then add the wedding bells, one house where lovers dwell, three little kids for the flavor. Stir carefully through the days, see how the flavor stays. These are the dreams you will savor with his blessings from above.
You can't beat the memories you gave me.
Serve it generously with love.
You can't beat the memories you gave me.
One man, one wife, one love, through life. Memories are made of this.
Can't beat the memories you gave me.
Memories are made of this.
Perhaps love is like a resting place, a shelter from the storm. It exists to give you comfort. It is there to keep you warm. And in those times of trouble, when you are most alone, the memory of love will bring you home. Perhaps love is like a window, perhaps an open door. It invites you to come closer. It wants to show you more. And even if you lose yourself and don't know what to do, the memory of love will see you through. Love to some is like a cloud, to some is strong as steel. For some a way of living, for some a way to feel. And some say love is holding on, some say letting go. Some say love is everything, some say they don't know. Perhaps love is like the ocean, full of conflict, full of pain, like a fire when it's cold outside, or thunder when it rains. If I should live forever and all my dreams come true, my memories of love will be of you. Some say love is holding on, some say letting go. Some say love is everything, and some say they don't know. Perhaps love is like the mountains, full of conflict, full of change, like a fire when it's cold outside, or thunder when it rains. If I should live forever and all my dreams come true, my memories of love will be of you.
Kath, my younger sister, has written a poem to express her love and memories of Dad. Kath.
Thank you everyone for being here today. It's really appreciated. Dad had many sayings that he said to us, but there was one that pertained to me in particular. It might sound like a swear word, but it's not a swear word. Huck that horse up, Missy, and get down the hill. In fields of ripening wheat, the local contractor he would meet. My dad, the farmer, works the land. With love and care, he lends a hand. The paddocks stretch far and wide, where our woolen companions like to hide. The horses gallop strong and free, with grace and beauty for all to see. The dogs, loyal and true, watch over the farm, sometimes out of view. Their barks ring out true and clear, guiding us always without any fear. My determined dad, with his weathered hands, tends to the crop and the lands. His hard work never went unseen, a true farmer, wise and keen. So here's to our wonderful dad of his life. We are all so glad. In the paddocks we find our joy. Thanks so much, old boy. And this is written with Sam and I, and we got the school teacher out just to do the spell check afterwards. Thank you, everyone.
Next, I'd like to welcome a few of the grandkids, William, Hazel and Sarah, to share their memories and words from grandkids overseas.
Kia ora everybody. My name is Hazel and I am Lynette's daughter. So that makes me Brian and Rosalie's eldest granddaughter. Today I'm also speaking on behalf of my older brother, Will. Firstly, I'd like to thank you all for coming and celebrating our granddad with our family today. Sorry, I might cry, but it's okay. It is humbling to see the people who have also shared their life with my granddad. In saying that, I don't feel the need to stand here and sing praises about what the incredible man he was, because I know that you already know the beautiful man as he was just as well as I do. So instead, I'm going to share some stories with you of mine and my brother's about our granddad. When I was young, I distinctly remember thinking that grandparents are random people that your parents chose, and that our parents had chosen Brian and Rosalie because they were the coolest. I would have been about 4 or 5 when I discovered that our grandma and granddad were in fact our mum's parents. As you can imagine, this came as quite the shock, considering how tall grandma and granddad are and how short my mum is. Growing up, my brother and I spent a lot of time visiting grandma and granddad. We both had many fond memories from when they lived on Halcombe Hill. Many school holidays were filled with exploring the farm with granddad, which included riding on the back of his Kawasaki bike while he tended to his sheep. One particular day, I remember Granddad telling Will and I to hold on tight as he put the Kawasaki into neutral and we flew down the hill at what felt like quite the speed. Impressed is an understatement to what I felt when Granddad expertly shifted the bike into gear and swung a right before we drove through the electric fence at the bottom. As much as Granddad loved farming, his pride for his family and our heritage came first. Will and I spent countless hours in the car with Grandma and Granddad, seeing where they grew up and hearing their stories about hearing about what their childhood was like. As Will and I are city kids, it was always fascinating to hear about their country upbringings. We could also, on these trips, also known as tiki tours, we could also count on Granddad to suggest we get an ice cream on the way home. Conversations about our heritage were common around the dinner table with Granddad. Seeing Granddad's pride in where he came from has, I believe, been instilled in Will and I. Granddad has taught us about loyalty and why family is so important. For Will and I, Granddad was our only grandfather we had in our lives, as our other grandfather passed before either of us were born. Because of this, our relationship we shared with our Granddad is one of a kind and is so incredibly special to the both of us. Granddad taught us both to be kind, but to also stick up for ourselves. He taught us about what hard work really looks like, and that sometimes life isn't fair and you just got to get on with it. I remember Granddad telling Will and I one summer before we went back to school that we need to keep our heads down, work hard, be kind, and don't cause any trouble. But if someone hits you, you better hit them back, because we don't have any pussies in this family. As stern and as bold as Granddad could be, his heart was always gentler and kinder than anything else. Seeing how Granddad loved and respected Grandma set a standard for what Will and I wanted in our life partners, who we are both so grateful to have by our sides today. One thing we witnessed Granddad do throughout our lives was make Grandma these little origami love knots, called German love knots, and they symbolise everlasting love. Granddad's nana, our great-great-grandmother, used to make them out of her grocery lists, which she would give to Granddad, and he would go and fetch the goods she needed from the shop. It is also to my understanding that Granddad, on several occasions, ate the inside out of the loaves of bread that his nana had requested while on his way home. Anyway, whenever Granddad had a wrapped lolly, he would fold the paper into a German love knot and gift it to Grandma, and on some occasions I would also receive one. And in fact, this is the one he made me at Christmas time, out of a foil ice cream lid, so anything went. In memory of Granddad and his fondness for giving these to those he held close, I have made quite a few of them. And after the ceremony, they will be in a bowl next to Granddad's urn, and we invite our family to take one and place one on the table next to his urn if you would like. There's also going to be some sprigs of rosemary as well. Granddad is one of our biggest inspirations and role models, and we will carry him and his teachings in our stead. Will and I are so lucky to have had almost 30 years with our Granddad. We will miss him, but we will look for him in the rolling hills. We will think of him when our doggies greet us and we come home. And we will listen for him when we need that voice of reason. And as a final word, I would like to share a poem with you all. Now, I didn't write this poem, but I did change it a little bit so it suits Granddad a bit more. It's called Find Me There. Find me there, where the sunsets glow, but it never gets dark, where the hills are rolling and the pastures are green. where everything you've ever loved finds its way back to you. The place you went when your heart fell asleep. My time will one day come to see you again, and you can find me there. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Sarah. I'm Andrew's daughter, and I'll be speaking for myself and my sisters today. They're in the UK, so they're sad they couldn't make it. Okay. How lucky are we to have had the privilege of knowing my granddad? Let's not only remember him, but let's celebrate the beautiful life he lived and all the memories that he has left us with. I know he has touched all of our hearts in some way or another. I had the privilege of spending a week with my granddad a few months ago, and being able to soak up every last moment I could with him is something I'm so grateful for. One of the most special moments of my trip was being able to see Granddad and Grandma sitting in their chair again. I know it sounds small, but when I think of Grandma and Granddad, that's how I picture them. Hand in hand in their comfy seats by the window, simply enjoying each other's company. Sorry. Oh, okay. The relationship between my grandparents is one that I aspire to have for myself one day. A best friend and a life partner. I remember on Grandma's 80th birthday when we were all singing "You Are My Sunshine," I got to sit next to Granddad. I was watching him sing to Grandma and I shed a few tears. It touched my heart so deeply to see someone so in love with someone after such a long lifetime together. Granddad cared so deeply for people. I don't think there was an ounce of hate in his heart. He would often share stories about when he was younger and how people would judge each other. And he would always end the stories with, "People are just people." He saw no difference in anyone. And this is something my father has in him. And he's shared that with Lauren, Elli, and I. I'm so grateful to have such kind and gentle men be role models for my sisters and myself. Granddad, I wish you peace. You'll be remembered, and the lessons you've taught me will be carried on through generations. Future hunters will know you just as I do. I love you. And Lauren and Elli have both written something. Whoa, I'm shaking. As well. So this one's from Lauren. Thank you all for being here today to remember Granddad. Although I can't be there in person, I'm grateful that my sister can share these words for me. One thing that stands out to me is how Granddad always made me feel like I didn't have to be anything but who I was and where I was. While he never shied away from a good debate, and we had many, he offered his support and love without ever asking for anything in return. When I think of Granddad, it's hard not to think of Grandma too. Their lives are so intertwined, and their love for each other was constant and steady. Watching them from the back seat, holding hands while one looked left and the other looked right, always made me feel so safe. They showed us what it truly means to share a life with someone, and the warmth and kindness of their love has left an everlasting imprint on me. I loved hearing his stories of his childhood in Rewa and his life with Grandma in Waituna West, and Wanganui on long car rides. Granddad's stories brought life to every farm, every rickety house, every field. He showed us that we are where we came from, and I will always carry his love for history and heritage. Growing up, we had the words of John Ruskin on our wall, a gift to my parents from my granddad and grandma. To watch the corn grow or the blossoms set, to draw hard breath over the plow or spade, to read, to think, to love, to pray. These are things that make men happy. And to me, this quote sums up what Granddad has taught me. There's a season for everything, and a good life is one of hard work, of patience, of love, of learning, and of family. As I reflect on my granddad, I realize how much of him I still see every day in my dad. His values, his work ethic, his love for his family. I feel so privileged to have a strong and gentle men like him and Dad guiding me through my life. Granddad showed me that while we may not know where we are going, if we move forward with love, laughter, and kindness, we will get there. We are hunters, and we finish our course. Thank you, Granddad, for everything. I love you. And lastly, it's from Elli, and this is very Elli, it's quite funny. She says, "When thinking of Granddad and the happy times we shared, I think of the times like when I was young and we wanted to prank Grandma. It was Christmas Day in Feilding. Granddad and I were waiting for the perfect moment to trick Grandma into holding a beer while Granddad waited across the room with his camera to snap the shot. Unfortunately, Grandma's far too quick and figured out our scheme within seconds before Granddad could catch her. I also think of when I wanted to sit my full license in Feilding, and Granddad took me out for practice. He took me on an in-depth tour all over the family history spots in Feilding, with stories to go along with it. I must have been clearly nervous to drive fast on the roads, as when we got back home, he told Grandma I eventually relaxed and did a great job. I felt pretty stoked to receive a driving compliment from Granddad. I'll never forget the smile that was always on his face, the tours of the coach house, and the kindness and love he showed us all. Thank you, Granddad, for teaching me about where we come from, what it means to be proud, and how to take care of the things you love. I'm lucky to have such a great man as a granddad and a dad who takes after him so well." Thank you.
It's an honour to welcome Nigel Codrington, Dad's employer, at Totally Vets, to share a few words with us. Nigel knew Dad not only as an employee but also as a valued member of his team. Nigel.
Sorry, bear with me. I'm of an age where I walk into rooms or the garage or something and think, now what am I here for? And 5 minutes later I'm still trying to figure it out. So I just hope you'll bear with me. It's an absolute pleasure to speak of Brian. I also saw Brian a week before he died, and I was lucky enough to spend an hour or so with him. And he was as sharp as a tack up here, but his time was coming. And Rosalie and I shared that later. Anyway, to Brian. He came into our lives, in my life. I didn't know him before. When he came on board as a field rep, he applied for a reception job in the clinic. And in amongst the 200 plus applications that we got for that job was this one from a retired farmer. Interestingly, we'd been talking for a couple of years about getting a field rep, not a sales rep. Our clients had told us very seriously they didn't want any more salespeople driving up their roads, their drives, etc. So we took that on board. So I ended up bringing Brian and saying, come in, we'll have a yarn. And so we talked it through, and he, to our great pleasure, accepted the job. Now, it was a new position. We didn't have a job description. We didn't have anything. So I really want to talk a little bit about the challenges that Brian faced with that smile and with the values that he carried within, and he lived. He lived those values not just daily, he lived them every day, all day. That was Brian. He was an amazing guy. But when he first came in, and when I talked with him re the job, and he joined our team, so we worked together, I quickly realised that he had not brought just a farming degree in with him and a friendship and whatnot. He brought a master's degree in living. No question about it. He epitomised to all of us, all of our team. He showed just huge example, and we just absorbed it by osmosis, just by being around him. He was a fantastic guy. That's not to say he didn't have his foibles, and I'll talk about those too when we go along a bit further. So, whilst I like to think that he learnt some stuff from us, and again I'll talk about that later, we certainly learnt a lot from Brian, just simply through his example. He wasn't a didactic teacher. He didn't sit up there like a lecturer and say, thou shalt do this. He just followed his life and lived his life. And the way he lived his life, amazing, such an example. So I said a little bit earlier about the challenges that he faced. Well, picture this. He'd been a farmer, and a good farmer, as I understand. And a lot of his work had been alone or with neighbours or with his family, but mostly on his own. And suddenly he's in a clinic of 42 people, a lot of them females, young females, out the front, servicing clients, supporting the vets in their roles. Some of those are vets as well. And I'm not being sexist here at all. It's one good thing about the veterinary profession is that there is no such thing. You're all equal. And into this he comes and he's got a job to do, servicing clients, etc. And no job description, just we'll figure it out as we go. And he did. Amazingly, he did it. Why? Just because of who he was. And I'm trying to get across this man who had just so much strength here. I'll talk about that later too. Anyway, move on. So that was his first challenge. Sheep and beef farmer, and he had to work with dairy clients. And Rosalie will affirm this, that was a challenge for Brian. He could talk the weather and he could talk grass growth, but milk solids, fat, he wasn't too sure about all of that. But he cottoned on to it pretty quickly. So now he's in a role of supporting clients and the team at MVS, or Manawatu Vets. When he first came, totally Vets it morphed into. Some of those other roles, we did projects, research, etc. He was the support person. He was the guy that, we're going to the monitor farms today. Brian would be there, he'd be in at 5 o'clock, trailer on the back of the car, off to the hall that we're meeting in, setting up the thing, picking up lunch, being made by the district that we were going to, etc. He was the guy that did all of that, and at the end of the day, cleaned it all up again and brought it home. Some of the other things he supported was the community events, things like the Christmas parade, and we generally tried to get a float into the support the town and other thing. And Brian was enthusiastic as hell. And now I understand with his background of the training that he had in Palmerston why he was so damn good at building floats. He was good. Other things, community, I've talked about the community events, the social events, like client barbecue every Christmas. So who's the guy cooking the sausages? Who's the guy buttering the bread before anyone arrives? Who's the guy in the background just talking quietly, whatnot? Brian. And then, of course, there was the team events. And this is where I'll talk about an example of Brian's strength. We had a retreat up at Makura Lodge. And we'd gone through the day, we'd gone through the day, done all the fun, serious stuff, and now we were the fun, relaxed stuff. And so a few of us leaning around the bar, etc., and in amongst them, fair smattering of between 30 and 40-year-old young veterinarians, thought they were pretty good, go to the gym maybe twice, 3 times a week, you get the picture. they very quickly sorted out this contest. And if anybody's been to Makuri Lodge, they've got some pretty solid stools. They're about this high, they're made of wood, they're about that square in each leg that goes down, they're quite heavy. So the contest became holding up 2 stools. And whoever held them up the longest was going to be the winner, etc. So Way went through about half a dozen of the young Turks, and they thought they'd finished, and this gentle man from the background said, "Oh, can I have a go?" He blew them away. Absolutely blew them away. He was a very powerful man, wasn't he? He was, physically. Oh, yeah. Some of the challenges were obvious, okay, but others weren't quite so obvious. So, what am I talking about? Technology. I thought my father was the only man that could blow smoke out his ears, but Brian could do it too. He had that talent, and that was basically, mostly, nearly always, never anger, frustration. He hated computers. And I empathised with him because I was very similar. He hated them. And he'd struggle with them, etc. So picture Brian, big man, out the front on the reception desk, talking to a client, walks in, talking to him, what sorts out what his needs, brings them up. Oh God, I've got to enter it in the computer. Well, that was the one thing I taught him, was don't. Just get one of the girls, please come and you'll be quicker than me. That was always my excuse. Brian picked it up pretty quickly too. So, he learned to avoid those tasks that other people were better at. One of the other ones that weren't so obvious was part of his job was calling on clients, and it was to build up relationships, try and strengthen our relationships with our clients, and to get feedback as to what we're doing wrong, what we should be doing right, but more importantly, who was in trouble and how can we help. That was the most important thing. So it involved Brian having a lot of cups of tea and a lot of cups of coffee. And I must apologise for this, a lot of bickies and cakes, etc., and he put a lot of weight on them. I'm sorry about that. But it wasn't my fault. But the cups of tea and coffee actually have an end result, as you well know. And so he very quickly had to figure out where were the safe comfort stops to stop at. And if he had somebody with him, that it could also complicate it even more. So those sorts of challenges he went through. Anyway, we developed a huge respect for this giant man. And it went from respect to admiration to love. And love of this gentle, humble, big man. And it was throughout the clinic. It wasn't just one or two, it was throughout the clinic. And an example of this, he went from when he started Mr. Hunter to Brian to very quickly Uncle Brian. And that's what he was known as in the clinic, as Uncle Brian, the favourite uncle, the one you go to, the one that will always listen to you, the one that will point you in the right direction, etc., the one that you trust. Uncle Brian. And that's what he was known as in the clinic. We learned so much from him. The historic stuff, the people in the district, where they lived, whose farms they were. It was immense, his knowledge in that respect. We learned how strong humility and humbleness can be in life, and what kindness and caring looked like. And it was genuine with Brian. It wasn't a put on, it was genuine. He was the epitome of that saying, nobody cares how much you know until they know how much you care. And he was the epitome of that. He absolutely lived that. Gentleness he had in spades, but that didn't mean he was a softie. He was steadfast in his values. He lived strong values. His sense of humour was well known, it's been talked about, but one thing I'd add to that, he never laughed at the expense of others. It was a genuine sense of humour, but he never at the expense of other people. Willing, helpful attitude, that it's okay to be in the background, helping others achieve their goals and for them to be recognised. And that's how he lived his life. He was much more comfortable in the back room than out front in the spotlight. And his immense respect for others. Never forget that. So as you can see, Brian left to us, the clinic, everybody in it. He's left us a legacy of positive attitude, a lasting influence on our team as a team and as individuals. So thank you, Rosalie, and your family for sharing him with us for that short time. He will be missed, he'll be fondly remembered, but he'll always be loved by us. Rest in peace, my mate. You've earned it by living a life so good. Thank you.
Now I'd like to introduce Brian Guy. Brian was not only a close friend of Dad's, but also a valued colleague at the Coach House Museum. Brian shared many experiences with Dad, and their friendship was built on mutual respect, shared laughter, and countless memories. Brian.
Well, Brian was one of our most dedicated volunteers here. And as Andrew said, I'm Brian Guy. I chair the trust that operates the Coach House Museum. And just want to acknowledge and honour Brian for his contribution to our Coach House family. Brian gave a huge amount of his time and energy to our museum. In fact, for many years, I think that's all he did. And I'm surprised that you grandchildren even had time to, or he even had time for you. Well, I'm not surprised really, but you know, he just put so much time and energy into the Coach House. And part of this, his involvement started because of his lifetime association with horses, as we've already heard. And I know he used horses for riding on the farm and the farms. I don't think he actually used them to plough or work the land, but he knew how to harness them, and I know he gathered a lot of knowledge about how to harness the horses, is what he's used in here, and how those horses were used to develop the farmlands of our district. So Brian chaired this trust for some 10 years, and before I took over the role, and during his time as chairman, he was instrumental in the driving force of establishing what you see here today. The Coach House began in a much smaller building in Feilding and Bowen Street, and then with Brian's leadership and much negotiation, they relocated to this site in about 2012. Brian led a team which raised a significant amount of funding to develop what you see here. As has been mentioned, a bit hard to follow all these speakers and try and say something that's different, but Brian was very humble. He gave credit to others who were involved. But without his strong leadership, none of this would have been achieved. And when I say strong leadership, it's can be code for single-mindedness, stubbornness, pig-headedness, and determination, but it can't be overstated, the monumental effort that was put in to achieve, I'm not sure exactly the number, but over $1.5 million was raised to secure and develop this building and site. And Brian was able to do this because of his uniqueness and his personality, which we've already heard of, and perhaps because of his love and understanding of horses. He had a great understanding of people. Being a farmer himself, he understood farming people, how they thought, how they lived, their values, and their limitations. He could get alongside people and encourage them and lead them to work together. And I can assure you that's not an easy task. With a large group of volunteers, leading them sometimes a bit like herding cats. So Brian, along with Rosalie, also produced our monthly newsletter, the Chronicle it's called, and they did this faithfully for some 20 years. That they produced this newsletter each month, writing stories and articles about our region, about the pioneers and settlers that settled here. And it was only about 3 years ago, I think, Rosalie, that you gave this up, but we're forever grateful for that labour of love that that so many people have enjoyed over these many years. But when I think of Brian, my impression and appreciation is not simply what he achieved, it's who he was, the man that he was. He was caring, compassionate, he was tender-hearted, and he was generous. And not only did he get things done, but he was able to get others and get the best out of others. My dad was one who had great respect for Brian and considered him a great friend. There was a camaraderie and understanding between them that went more than beyond mere words. There was kinship and connection that some farming men just seem to have, I guess, although maybe not just farming men, but that's where I've been brought up, so I notice it in farming men. But I so appreciate the generosity of Brian and you, Rosalie, particularly when Dad was dying, and also to Mum in those years that followed. That gift will never be forgotten. Brian also worked alongside our daughter at Totally Vets with Nigel, and ever since they both left there, Anna moved to Auckland, and Brian would always ask, how's Anna doing, how are the kids doing, what are they up to, with a genuine interest and compassion. So Brian's missed. I know he's missed by Rosalie, Lynette, Andrew and Kath and the families, but he's also missed by his family here at the Coach House. His larger-than-life presence, that broad smile, that strong handshake, his listening ear and that sage advice that he was always willing to give us. And as has been said, he leaves a wonderful legacy. A legacy that we see around us here, but more importantly, that legacy of his family that will be passed on, as the girls mentioned, from generation to generation. And you've got a big responsibility there.
I know, you've been sure he told me on his last...
He would have told you. He would have told you. So those, as you said, those stories that will be passed on and continue to be told will keep Brian alive in the hearts of all of us who love him. So thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I sincerely like to thank the speakers who have spoken today that allow us to live the thoughts we have of Brian too. And as I stand here and look out at all of you, I know that Brian has touched many of you in so many ways, and I thank you. To our doctor, Bruce Stewart, we thank him for the care he gave Brian. To the Lavender Care ladies, your concern, your kindness and humour has been unsurpassed. You brought care, consideration and laughter into our home. To the district nurses, each showed professional care and knowledge, even if one of them called Brian a conundrum, meaning a difficult problem. They always gave their best. To the doctors, nurses and social workers from Arohanui Hospice, how can we thank these special people, medical and caregiving? We'll be forever grateful to them for their kind and empathetic care of Brian in his last few days. We thank the friends who have supported us in so many ways with baking, cards, messages, letters, phone calls and a listening ear and hugs. To our museum family, we thank you for your support to Brian. To the trust and volunteers, you worked together with him, and now we have a top-class museum that he was so proud of. To the people who attend Smoko, we have both enjoyed your company and marvel at the skills, knowledge, expertise and the history and life experiences you all share with us. Yes, Brian always wanted Smoko to be Smoko, an informal chat or a time to tell stories. But my biggest thank you must be to our family, Lynette and David, Andrew and Kerry, Catherine and Sam and our grandchildren. Your support has been unending. It's always been a comfort to me to have been able to share my concerns about Dad, and your comfort has been relentless. Thank you. And now I'd like you to join us in the theatre and have a cup of tea and continue to share your stories of Brian. Thank you.